On the eve of the holiday, I was taken home by my wealthy parents after being bound to a truth-telling system. The White Lotus fake heiress sobbed pitifully. Now that sister is back, should I leave? I blurted out without restraint. Don't just leave. Run, my wealthy parents angrily retorted. Do you believe we'll throw you out again? I blurted out. There's such a good thing. Goodbye then, I'm outta here. Then I chose to turn myself in to the authorities. The officer pointed skeptically at 3 photos and asked me, a recent serial murder case occurred in our city. Which one of these 3 is the killer? I uttered that unexpected answer. The person across from me was shocked, but I just smiled. Ever since being bound to the truth-telling system, I've been carefully keeping my mouth shut, avoiding speech whenever possible. There's no helping it. My mouth has a mind of its own. But the fake heiress Kathy insisted on tearfully asking me, since my sister is back, should I leave now? My mouth said, don't leave, run instead. Kathy froze for a moment, then cried even louder. Mr. Taylor angrily shouted, get upstairs right now. I swiftly made myself scarce, comforting myself along the way that honesty and integrity are traditional virtues, returning to the bedroom upstairs, comparable to a presidential hotel suite. I locked the door behind me and let out a long sigh of relief. This damn system is truly impossible to guard against. Dinner time, under the crystal chandelier, the long dining table was set with exquisite tableware. Kathy sat beside Mrs. Taylor, her eyes slightly red, looking pitifully delicate. I quietly pulled out the chair farthest from them and sat down, trying my best to blend into the background. Anna, eat more, you're too thin, Mrs. Taylor said, signaling the servant to serve me more food. I nodded and hummed and through my nose. Kathy picked up a piece of fish with her chopsticks and said in a soft, sweet voice, sis, this steamed fish is James's specialty. Try it and see if it's good. Not good. I stared at that piece of fish, alarms blaring in my heart. No, girl, you could have used a declarative sentence, an exclamation, or even parallelism. Why did it have to be a question? I wanted to say, thank you, but my mouth uncontrollably blurted out, oh, this fish was thawed at 3 p.m. yesterday, then left at room temperature in the kitchen for over 4 hours before steaming. It's not very fresh. You eat it yourself. The air instantly froze. Kathy's chopsticks froze mid-air, her face alternating between red and white. Mrs. Taylor slammed her chopsticks down with a sharp snap, her well-maintained face icy with anger. Anna, are you deliberately trying to upset the whole family? I wanted to cover my mouth, but the words spilled out anyway. Can't you see she's just a fake heiress who's been grating on my nerves all along? We're doomed. I lit a candle in my heart for myself. Since I returned, the Taylors have not mentioned a word about Kathy's whereabouts, and her living arrangements remain unchanged. It's clear they intend to keep her. Mr. Taylor glared at me fiercely. Eat. This meal was consumed under Kathy's faint sobs and the icy stares of Mr. and Mrs. Taylor. I ate extremely quickly and immediately stood up after finishing. I'm done. Take your time. Then I slipped away like greased lightning. From behind came Mrs. Taylor's voice comforting Kathy. Kathy, don't mind her, she grew up in the countryside, no manners. The next day, I was stuffed into the city's famous elite school, in the same class as Kathy. No need to guess, this was definitely Kathy's idea. Under the pretense of providing me with the best education, she actually wanted to make me feel inferior and timid in comparison to her, dressed in a brand new, yet utterly uncomfortable, designer school uniform. I was led into the classroom by the homeroom teacher. Whispers filled the room. With gazes of curiosity, scrutiny, and, most of all, disdain, Kathy sat in the front row, flashing me a flawless, gentle smile. I quietly walked to the empty seat in the last row and sat down, continuing to enforce my shut up policy. I would use gestures rather than words whenever possible, and nodding or shaking my head sufficed, never uttering an extra syllable, until math class. Perhaps the Taylor family had specifically instructed him to give me special attention. Anna, can you tell us how to solve this problem? It was an insanely difficult Olympiad math problem. Forget about me, a rural student who'd never encountered such questions before. Even the top students in our class rarely got them right. I stared at the blackboard, my mind completely blank. Just as I was about to honestly say, I don't know, my mouth seemed to open like floodgates. Fluently reciting the solution steps and final answer, he even commented, actually, using the Cauchy inequality would make the solution more concise, or constructing an auxiliary function and taking the derivative would work too. I talked non-stop for over 10 minutes before finally stopping. The classroom was dead silent. The math teacher adjusted his thick glasses, looked at the blackboard, then at me, his eyes filled with shock and disbelief. Perfectly correct. And the reasoning is extremely clear. With a very sophisticated solution. Anna, have you encountered this type of problem before? I froze in place, my mind racing wildly. Teacher, would you believe me if I said I was just possessed by an alien? I'd also love to know how my mouth knew about the Cauchy inequality. No, I replied stiffly, this time telling the truth. The way my classmates looked at me changed instantly, from disdain to shock and doubt. Only Kathy, when she turned to look at me, wore a strained smile at the corner of her mouth. When the bell rang for the end of class, I was the first to dash out of the classroom and hide in the restroom. Staring at my reflection in the mirror, I realized this cursed mouth could not only speak the truth from the heart but also facts, whether I was aware of them or not. Then wouldn't I become a passive human search engine, and one with 100% accuracy at that? This discovery filled me with terror, yet also stirred a faint thrill. Perhaps this bug-like ability isn't entirely a bad thing. However, the tree desires stillness but the wind will not cease. Kathy clearly had no intention of letting me live peacefully. After school, as soon as I stepped out of the school gate, she and her little entourage blocked my way. Many classmates nearby slowed their pace, ready to watch the drama unfold. Kathy wore a worried expression today. Sis, I know you just got back and want to prove yourself, but what you did in math class today really put the teacher in an awkward position. That problem was so difficult, you must have seen the answer somewhere beforehand, right? Her voice was just loud enough for everyone around to hear clearly. Instantly, suspicious and knowing glances fell upon me. I sneered inwardly. Thinking of making baseless accusations, my mouth automatically opened, the words spilling out as fast as a machine gun. Looks like you're the one who's embarrassed, Kathy. That handwritten cheat sheet with physics formulas in your desk. Should I go find it right now and read it out loud for everyone? Kathy's face instantly paled, her eyes darting toward the classroom. I didn't stop and turned to her top follower, a stylishly dressed girl. And you, Judy, stop making a scene here. Your basketball team boyfriend was flirting with 3 girls simultaneously at 10:30 last night. The chat records are quite entertaining. Would you like me to remind you of the details? For example, how he called one of them sweetheart. Judy's face instantly turned pale, and she screamed, "You're lying." I then pointed at another chubby boy. Lee, don't smirk. That precious notebook signed, Kathy, in your drawer was picked up from the trash after Kathy threw it away. Not only does she know, but she also finds you disgusting. The scene was deathly silent, then erupted into even greater chaos. The named individuals turned pale, and the gazes of their classmates instantly shifted from me to them, filled with gossip and shock. Kathy trembled with anger, pointing at me. You're slandering me. I blinked innocently. Whether I'm slandering or not, you know best. Sorry, I have things to do, so I'll be leaving now. Before they could recover from the shock of the truth, I quickly squeezed through the crowd and made my escape. Although I didn't let them take advantage of me, I also clearly realized that if I continued to speak without restraint regardless of the occasion, it would inevitably lead to serious trouble. I need to find a better place for myself as soon as possible. The storm reached its climax at the weekend banquet. The Taylor family was hosting an important guest, rumored to be a big shot in a certain field, someone Mr. Taylor was desperately trying to curry favor with for business reasons. Before the banquet, Mr. and Mrs. Taylor sternly warned me, "You better behave today, don't say anything inappropriate. If you mess this up, you'll see what happens." I nodded like a chicken pecking at rice, determined to be a silent beauty tonight. The guest was a man around 50 years old, surnamed Miller. It said that he particularly values whether his business partners have harmonious families. The Taylor family only caught Mr. Miller's attention by finding me, their long-lost biological daughter. Kathy was dressed like a delicate doll, sitting obediently beside the guest, her words as sweet as honey. I huddled in a corner, focused on tackling a lobster, trying my best to stay unnoticed. The atmosphere was very harmonious. Mr. Miller praised Kathy for being sensible and well-mannered. Kathy modestly replied, "Uncle Miller, you flatter me too much. I still have much to learn from my sister. She just returned from the countryside, and her personality is particularly down to earth." I rolled my eyes internally and continued eating my lobster. I don't know why this fake heiress always tries to target me, even at such an important occasion. She couldn't resist mentioning me. Mr. Miller probably changed the topic to me out of politeness. I heard Anna was just found. Is she adjusting well to life? I warned myself. Shut up, smile, nodding. I raised my head, forced what I thought was my most obedient smile, and nodded. Oh no, just that action seemed to trigger some kind of switch. I heard myself answer in an unmistakably clear voice, adapting. Well, there's just this fake rich girl always acting like a white lotus in front of me, and my parents are both blind enough to fall for her act. Clang, Mr. Miller's silver soup spoon fell into the bowl, splashing a few drops of broth onto his expensive suit. Mr. Taylor's face turned from red to white to blue, changing like a neon light. Mrs. Taylor nearly dropped the wine glass in her hand. Kathy was also stunned. Mr. Miller's face was extremely awkward, forcing out a faint smile. "Heh, little one, what a joke." I knew that at this moment, the Taylor family's plan to cozy up to Mr. Miller was completely ruined. Mr. Taylor suddenly stood up, his finger trembling as he pointed at me, on the verge of exploding. I quickly grabbed a napkin to wipe my mouth and preempted him. "Sorry, I accidentally spoke the truth. To avoid giving everyone here a heart attack and for my own safety, I'll make myself scarce." I started packing as soon as I got home. Who knows what rules these wealthy families might have. It wouldn't be good if they locked me up as punishment. My mouth is even more stubborn than I am. There's no way I'd admit to being wrong. And just as I had imagined, that's exactly what happened. By the time the Taylor family returned, I had already packed my things and was sitting on the sofa watching TV. I thought it would be more polite to say goodbye properly. As soon as Mr. Taylor got home, he smashed a vase worth over $10,000. Do you have any idea how much effort I put into connecting with Mr. Miller? Mrs. Taylor also looked at me reproachfully. "Anna, how could you say such things at the party? It was so thoughtless of you." I shrugged helplessly. Yeah, sure. I'm the unreasonable one. I was perfectly fine staying at the orphanage, but you insisted on bringing me back, all these days. Have you ever cared about me? If it weren't for the collaboration with Mr. Miller, you'd never have come looking for me in this lifetime. Mr. Taylor, his intentions exposed, was so furious he couldn't speak. He pointed at me, stammering, "You," repeatedly without managing to say anything coherent. Kathy suppressed the glee in her eyes and put on a tearful expression. "Mom, Dad, please don't be angry. Maybe you should just send me away instead. I can explain things to Mr. Miller." Mrs. Taylor patted her head affectionately. "Good girl, you don't need to worry about this matter. Look, this is the kind of daughter the Taylor family raises." Mrs. Taylor turned to the luggage at my feet, and her barely subsided anger flared up again. She pointed at the luggage and glared at me. "What do you mean by this? The Taylor family has provided you with the best food and care. What more could you possibly be dissatisfied with?" Kathy leaned into her arms and said weakly, "Maybe I should be the one to leave." "Then she should be the one to leave." Mr. Taylor shouted at me, pointing toward the door. "Get out of here right now." This suited me just fine. Delighted, I made myself scarce in a hurry. Where to next? I've already made up my mind. The Municipal Public Security Bureau. Since I can't control this mouth of mine, I might as well find a place where it can be put to the best use. I'm taking this blessed mouth of mine to serve the country and contribute to the nation. Standing at the solemn entrance of the Municipal Public Security Bureau, I took a deep breath. The national emblem gleaming in the sunlight gave me an inexplicable sense of reassurance. But here's the problem. My truth-telling system is a passive skill. It only activates when I'm asked a question, making me answer uncontrollably. I can't just walk up to someone and say, "Hey bro, my mouth's been blessed." Right, that's so weird. I need to figure out a way to get them to ask me questions. And they have to hit the nail on the head. I walked into the hall, and the young officer behind the duty desk looked up. "Hello, how can I help you?" I quickly put on my most sincere expression. "Officer, I'd like to ask about something." "Go ahead," the officer said, pulling out a registration book. I struggled to organize my words. "Well, if someone knows things others don't, like clues about a certain case, but she can't volunteer the information, it has to be asked for, and she can guarantee everything she says is true, how should she report this to the police?" The officer frowned. "If you know any clues, just say them directly." "What do you mean you can't take the initiative to speak?" "Young lady, filing a false police report is illegal." Damn, the guidance failed. I was so anxious that my palms were sweating. How should I explain this? Just then, a slightly lazy yet magnetic voice chimed in. What's going on here? I turned around and saw a tall, upright young man in a black shirt walking toward me. He was extraordinarily handsome, with delicate features, fair skin, and an aura that hovered between elegance and roguishness. Behind him followed a stern-looking middle-aged police officer. The officer on duty looked as if he had been granted a reprieve. Expert George, this lady says she has some leads but insists she can't volunteer them. The man known as the George Expert fixed his gaze on me, his peach blossom eyes scanning me up and down with amusement. Did you lose a game of truth or dare? Or is this some new performance art trend? I took a deep breath and met his gaze. Neither. I just can't voluntarily share what I know, but if you ask me, I can guarantee everything I say will be true. George raised an eyebrow. Oh, all right then, tell me, what am I thinking right now? My mouth immediately started moving uncontrollably. You're thinking, this girl is pretty, but her pickup line is way too cliché. Plus, she looks nervous. Her fingers are trembling. Did something at Taylor's place rattle her and she hasn't recovered yet? The smile on George's face froze instantly, a flicker of surprise flashing through his eyes. The middle-aged officer behind him also visibly stiffened. The air fell silent for a few seconds. George stroked his chin, his gaze now tinged with curiosity. Interesting. He signaled to the middle-aged officer behind him. Chen, take her to the small meeting room. The atmosphere in the small meeting room was tense. George and Officer Chen sat across from me. George still had that lazy demeanor, but his eyes were as sharp as an eagle's. Anna, let's get straight to the point, George began. Since you claim you can answer questions and provide the truth, let's put that to the test. I was still wondering how he knew my name. George had already thrown out a question. Let's start with an easy warm-up. Tell me, how many years has Chen been married? Officer Chen was taken aback, not expecting the spotlight to suddenly turn on him. My mouth automatically replied, 11 years. How old is Chen this year? 42 years old. What did Chen eat this morning? I overslept and didn't eat breakfast. When was Chen's last mission? 3 days ago. Officer Chen was restless. If questioned further, he'd have nothing left to hide. George chuckled. Seems like it wasn't just a wild guess. All right, let's play something more exciting. He leaned forward, his eyes burning with intensity. Have you heard about the recent serial killings in the Southern District? I saw it on the news. I replied cautiously. We've narrowed it down to 3 suspects. George pulled out 3 photos from somewhere and laid them out one by one in front of me, asking slowly and deliberately, tell me, out of these 3 people, who is the killer? Here it comes, critical question. Before my brain could even process the thought, the answer had already escaped my lips. The third one, Officer Chen sharply inhaled. George's pupils contracted slightly, but his tone remained steady. What's the murder weapon? Where is it? What are its characteristics? My mouth turned into a merciless truth-spewing machine. The murder weapon is a kitchen knife, buried under the ginkgo tree in his backyard. The handle has black engine oil on it. What evidence do you have? The second victim had fibers under her nails that match his blue-gray plaid shirt, specifically from the right cuff. Plus, he has OCD and washes his hands with a specific soap after each murder. The first crime scene had traces of that soap. I finished speaking in one breath, and the meeting room fell into dead silence. Officer Chen was so shocked he couldn't speak. Some of these details were confidential, while others hadn't even been uncovered by their investigation yet. George slowly stood up, all traces of laziness and mockery vanishing from his face, replaced by an extreme seriousness and excitement. He gave me a deep look, his eyes seeming to say, I've struck gold. He immediately issued orders to Officer Chen, speaking rapidly and clearly. Chen, arrange personnel immediately to conduct a covert check in the direction she mentioned. Focus on searching the backyard and wardrobe of suspect No. 3, and verify the soap brand. Hurry. Officer Chen snapped out of his daze and rushed out excitedly. Only George and I remained in the room. He walked up to me, looking down from his height, but there was no trace of disdain in his eyes anymore. Anna, he began slowly, do you realize what this ability of yours means? It means I probably can't live an ordinary life anymore. I answered honestly. Smart. His voice was low. This ability of yours is troublesome, but also extremely useful. From today onward, you're under my supervision. I'll personally report your situation to the higher-ups. He took out his phone and started typing a report, fingers moving swiftly. I know that this, only passively triggered, national treasure of mine has finally found its rightful place to shine, and George, Well, he's my new boss now. The task force moved with lightning efficiency. Based on my testimony, the police dug up the bloody murder weapon from suspect number 3's backyard, found that blue-gray shirt with the snagged cuff, and even confiscated his stockpile of that particular brand of soap. The evidence chain was perfectly closed. And the serial murder case that had plagued the municipal bureau for days was declared solved. Although the news wasn't made public, internal commendations were swiftly issued. When I received that 7-figure after-tax bonus check, my hands trembled slightly. I've never seen so many zeros in my life. George leaned against the desk and said coolly, "What? The eldest daughter of the Taylor family is still short of this small change." I rolled my eyes at him. "You know I'm the eldest daughter of the Taylor family, but don't you know I was just found not long ago? They wouldn't be willing to give me that much money." I happily planned how to spend it. First, moving to a more comfortable place, then buying a bunch of things I couldn't afford before. However, before I could celebrate my new home, I was hit by an online storm, somehow. The news about my massive bonus leaked out. Although no specific reason was mentioned, the headline, "Taylor family's newly recognized heiress receives exorbitant police reward," was enough to ignite public opinion. Under Kathy and her clique's influence, the narrative quickly turned into malicious gossip like Anna must have used shady methods, maybe she traded something for it, and she's brought shame to the Taylor family. Reading those spiteful speculations on my phone screen, I was so furious I nearly crushed my new phone. Damn it, my stupid mouth can't go online to clarify things myself. It's driving me crazy. Just as I was debating whether to engage in a 300-round battle with the trolls, an officially verified account labeled Special Strategic Advisor, George, appeared on social media and directly replied to the hottest rumor post. The bonus was personally approved by me, and the process was completely legal and compliant. The reason is that Comrade Anna provided crucial leads, helping our city recover significant losses and preventing more innocent victims. At City A Cyber Police, evidence against those spreading rumors in this post has been secured, and materials for defamation charges will be delivered shortly. The response caused an uproar across the internet. Holy crap, the authorities officially debunked the rumors, so badass. So it was actually contributing to solving the case. Salute, by the way. Does anyone know which department this strategic advisor is from? I held my phone, looking at that reply, and my heart blossomed with joy. Just then, George called, his tone as annoying as ever. "Next time, leave such trivial matters to your superior." Me, "Don't bottle it up yourself. It's bad for your endocrine system." I couldn't help but smirk, retorting stubbornly, I could handle such trifles myself. But, thanks anyway, words are cheap. How about something tangible? "Treat me to dinner tonight." "My pick," he said without hesitation. My hard-earned bonus just arrived, the case was solved, and my special value was reported by George as top-secret intelligence. Soon, I was assigned to a seemingly ordinary yet heavily guarded national security facility. A leader in his 50s surnamed Lin was sent from above, exuding an imposing aura without even showing anger. Mr. Lincoln and his guard took me to a basement. The interior was simply furnished with only a table and 2 chairs, and a camera placed on the table. Mr. Lincoln flipped through the documents in his hand. "Don't be nervous, young lady, I just have a few questions. After all, your ability is truly unbelievable, and we need to verify it." I nodded. Understood. In another solemn room beyond my sight, a group of people were intently staring at a large screen displaying the scene between me and Mr. Lincoln. Mr. Lincoln adjusted his glasses, his gaze sharp as an eagle's. "First question, let's keep it simple. My bodyguard Jack, where is his hometown?" Before I could even process the question, my mouth automatically answered, DS Village, Q City, D Province, the second house at the village entrance, with an old locust tree by the door. The guard Jack, standing like a statue in the corner, swayed almost imperceptibly, his eyes filled with shock. This detail wasn't even recorded in his file with such precision. A flicker of surprise flashed in Mr. Lincoln's eyes, but his expression remained unchanged as he continued, "Good, then tell me, what was I doing at 3 p.m. last Wednesday afternoon?" My mouth spoke. "You were in the underground third-floor conference room of Base No. 2 in the outskirts of the capital, presiding over the progress report of the Hidden Dragon project. You had a slight cold at the time and switched the tea in your thermos." Mr. Lincoln's hand holding the documents froze. That meeting was top secret, only his personal doctor knew about his cold. In the room behind the surveillance screen, there was a collective gasp. Someone gasped in a low voice. This is impossible. She absolutely couldn't have access to the meeting content. Mr. Lincoln took a deep breath and asked the most critical question. Then tell me, what is the biggest technical bottleneck in the hidden dragon deep sea detector we're currently developing, and what is the real solution? Everyone behind the screen held their breath. My mouth instantly provided the answer. The bottleneck lies in the fact that the existing special steel cannot withstand the extreme water pressure and low temperatures. The solution isn't in the material itself, but in the welding process. We need to adopt the experimental No. 33 technology from the Southwest Research Institute, but the current parameters are incorrect. The key is that the cooling rate in the third phase must be less than 15%, not 30. Clack. Mr. Lincoln's pen fell onto the table. Behind the monitoring screen, a gray-haired senior expert suddenly stood up, his voice trembling with excitement. Yes, exactly. That's the direction. How did she know we've been in contact with the Southwest Research Institute recently? This girl. She's incredible, Mr. Lincoln remained silent for a full 10 seconds before slowly rising to his feet. All traces of sternness on his face melting into disbelief and a kind of ecstatic joy. As if he had stumbled upon a priceless treasure, he walked around the desk and grasped my hand tightly. Comrade Anna, on behalf of the nation, I welcome you aboard. You are nothing short of a living strategic treasure. Just then, the basement door swung open, and George leaned against the doorframe with an "I told you so" expression on his face. Uncle Lin, do you believe me now? I told you we've struck gold. She's under my care from now on. Any objections? Mr. Lincoln burst into laughter and gave George a hearty pat on the shoulder. Good lad, consider this a major contribution. From now on, Comrade Anna's affairs are entirely your responsibility. George walked over to me, raising an eyebrow smugly. Hear that? Be a good girl and listen to your leader from now on. I rolled my eyes at him, but the heavy weight in my heart finally lifted. This highest level interview, I aced it with flying colors. George was my direct supervisor and sole point of contact. In his words, from now on, you're a national strategic asset, under my personal, under my full authority. And so my new life began. The first to come knocking was the leading figure from the National Biogenetics Laboratory. A white-haired senior academician, faced with 2 gene editing approaches he had been agonizing over for half a year. He lost a few more strands of hair from worry. He cautiously asked me, Comrade Anna, I currently have 2 plans. Which one has a higher chance of success? I replied, the second one, because the first plan would trigger uncontrollable cell carcinogenesis. The old academician's eyes widened like copper bells, and he immediately rushed back to the laboratory. 3 days later, he called excitedly, his voice trembling, success, absolutely correct. The problem that has troubled us for 3 years, Comrade Anna, you are truly a national treasure. I was overjoyed as well. The old academician suddenly asked, Comrade Anna, I heard you were supposed to take the college entrance exam this year. How about coming directly to our University of Science and Technology of China? I froze, suddenly remembering that I'm still a high school senior. But I really don't have the heart for school right now. Wouldn't that just be a waste of time? George reached out to take the phone. Academician Brown, this isn't something we can decide on our own. We'll need to file a report and request approval from higher up. All right, I'll go apply right away. Next came the aerospace expert. The engine materials for the new fighter jets still couldn't break through their limits. The chief engineer came to me with a pile of parameters that looked like gibberish, full of hope as he asked, Anna, look, which of these proposals has the most potential? I may not understand it, but my mouth does. None of them are great, but we can combine the strengths of the third and fifth proposals, raise the temperature by 300 degrees, use gradient cooling, and reduce cooling time by 15%. The chief engineer went to try it out with skepticism. A month later, good news arrived. The performance of the new material far exceeded expectations, marking a major breakthrough in the development of our country's new fighter jet. The chief engineer looked at me as if I were a deity descended from heaven. Next is an expert in the field of cryptography, who wants me to crack a string of code. The backdoor of this encryption algorithm is hidden in the 7th line of the 3rd segment of core code, using double-layer camouflage. The expert broke into a cold sweat, then became ecstatic. After multiple technical assists, my importance kept growing. Countless universities that I had never dared to dream of sent me invitations, but I turned them all down one by one. A special task force codenamed Dieting was established, with George as the team leader, responsible for all my affairs, including education, security, living arrangements, health, and mission coordination. My security level was also elevated to the highest tier. With a dedicated motorcade for travel and a residence as secure as a fortress, I became the secret weapon and ultimate reference answer. In various expert circles, the big shots I usually only see on TV greet me politely, smiling warmly and kindly. My schedule is packed. Today I'm enlightening physicists, tomorrow pointing historians in the right direction, and the day after exposing flaws for materials scientists. George, handling stacks of confidentiality agreements by my side, grumbles. TSK, you're the darling of the experts now. I'm not so much a consultant as your full-time nanny. I tilt my chin proudly and say, of course, right now, I'm practically a prized national asset. Ever since George helped clarify things for me on social media last time, the Taylor family has been trying to contact me, but they couldn't reach me no matter what. It was as if an invisible hand was stopping them. Mr. Taylor's business took a nosedive. And those who used to fawn over them began to keep their distance. They vaguely sensed something unusual about me, but they couldn't get close to me, who was under layers of protection, until one night, right after I attended a highly confidential technical seminar with George. I left the venue under tight security. Mr. Taylor somehow got wind of the news and actually waited at the only path, trying to rush over to speak with me, only to be rudely stopped by security personnel. George rolled down the car window and said, "President Taylor, please maintain a safe distance. Also, just a friendly reminder, your company's financial report last quarter had some rather obvious embellishments. Would you like me to invite my friends from the tax and securities regulatory departments for tea to discuss the details?" Mr. Taylor's face instantly turned pale, sweat pouring down his forehead. Not daring to say another word, he slunk away in disgrace. I watched the instantly hunched figure in the rearview mirror, feeling no emotional turmoil, just a sense of satisfaction, as if witnessing the wheel of karma turning. Did they ever imagine this day when they let Kathy spread rumors about me back then? On the road, I couldn't help but ask George, "Hey, what's your deal anyway? How do you know everything?" George, steering the wheel nonchalantly, replied, "Nothing much, just some family connections among the elders. And I happen to have a slightly higher IQ, earned a few PhDs ahead of schedule. The higher-ups thought I was suited for handling unconventional problems. Like you, I instantly understood. So, you can handle anything shady." He remained silent for a few seconds before surrendering with a smile. "You could say that, actually, even before you returned to the Taylor family. Your basic information was already on my desk. After all, the Taylors hold considerable influence in City A. And higher-ups were concerned about infiltration. I just didn't expect you to be far more interesting than what the files suggested. So, you've been observing me since the moment I stepped into the police station?" I asked. "Of course." He glanced at me with a teasing look in his eyes. "Otherwise, how could I have stumbled upon such a treasure?" Our daily work routine was basically this. I was responsible for answering all sorts of questions from the experts, while he took care of everything else. In our free time, he would take me out to try all kinds of delicious food, justifying it as replenishing energy for the nation's important asset, and then shamelessly made me pay with my bonus. We had eaten our way through the entire city of A, until, at my strong insistence, he personally cooked a grand feast to celebrate. I watched his busy figure in the kitchen, wearing an apron, and couldn't resist teasing him. "Expert George, I never thought you could actually cook." He turned around, raising an eyebrow. "What?" Falling for me, my loose tongue immediately blurted out, "A little." The air instantly fell silent. George was clearly stunned, the tips of his ears turning visibly red. He forced a calm demeanor as he placed the noodles in front of me, snorting, "Eat your noodles and cut the nonsense." But I clearly saw the corners of his mouth twitching upward as he turned away. My security clearance was already at the highest level, but certain foreign forces still resorted to desperate measures. On the way to a secret research facility, our convoy fell into an elaborately planned ambush. In the chaos, I was yanked out of the car by a force, felt a sharp pain at the back of my neck, and lost consciousness. When I woke up again, I was lying in the jolting cargo hold of a large truck, my hands and feet bound, surrounded by pitch-black darkness. Apart from the jolting sound of the moving vehicle, there was no other noise. The compartment was completely airtight, and I gradually began to feel dizzy. My heart sank to the bottom. At this moment, a faint electric current sound reached my ears. The tiny communicator I always wore was still working. This was the latest research achievement from the Institute. Not only nearly invisible to the naked eye but also capable of evading various detection devices, George's anxious voice came through. Anna. Can you hear me? Report your status. My mouth was sealed with tape, and I could only let out muffled MMPH sounds. George immediately understood and instructed rapidly. Listen, try to sense your surroundings, the direction the car is moving, noises, smells, any detail. I tried hard to focus, but the information I gathered was limited. Suddenly, George remembered my ability and asked that crucial question. Anna, tell me, what's the fastest and most effective way for you to escape right now? My truth system was forcibly activated, though his mouth was sealed. Uncontrollable muffled syllables still escaped his throat. Car, fuel tank, unlocked, use fire, force stop. George immediately ordered from the other end. Target vehicle's fuel cap is unlocked. Find an opportunity to ignite it and force a stop. Outside came the sounds of urgent pursuit and screeching brakes. Moments later, the truck I was in was violently forced to stop. The tremendous inertia slamming me against the cargo compartment, my head instantly buzzed with a ringing sound. Outside, gunshots and sounds of fighting were brief yet intense. Before long, the carriage door was violently yanked open, letting in a rush of fresh air. I saw George's handsome face filled with unprecedented panic as he pulled me into a tight embrace, his arms squeezing me fiercely. You scared me to death. Are you okay? His voice carried a barely noticeable tremor, still shaken. My mouth reacted honestly before I could think. It was pretty scary, but you're holding me too tight. My ribs hurt a little, George. He laughed angrily, loosening his grip slightly before ruffling my hair fiercely. Ungrateful. After this incident, my security measures were upgraded to an extreme level, almost making me a national treasure like a giant panda. George wouldn't leave my side for a second. It was like he'd follow me to the bathroom if he could. One night, he lingered in my dorm watching movies, and the atmosphere was just right. Suddenly, he leaned in, his eyes shining intensely, and whispered, Anna, isn't being with me way better than being that stifled rich heiress? That's too direct a question, my mouth answered without hesitation. Duh, of course it's awesome, no need to put on airs. Plus I get to see your handsome face every day. Realizing what I just said, I immediately covered my mouth. George chuckled softly. Smug as a cat that got the cream. Oh, so you like my face, do you? My face turned bright red, and I wanted to deny it, but the system wouldn't let me lie. I could only blurt out, so what if I do? He pushed his luck and kissed me. The kiss was both gentle and domineering. When it ended, he pressed his forehead against mine, breathing slightly ragged, and asked in a husky voice, what about me? Do you like me? I do. Do you love me? Love, I've already given up on myself. George hugged me tightly with satisfaction, rubbing his chin against the top of my head. That's more like it. Since you're being so honest, I'll reluctantly make an effort to file a report and submit our marriage application. Furious, I punched him, but he only held me tighter. All right, fine, since he's good-looking. In some corner I didn't know about, the Taylor family had completely fallen into ruin. Desperate, Mr. and Mrs. Taylor somehow got wind of my whereabouts and actually showed up at my workplace, tearfully begging me to come home. George immediately stepped in front of me. Excuse me, but you must have the wrong person. We only have Comrade Anna here, no Taylor family heiress. Security, please escort these unrelated individuals out. They're blocking important national vehicles. I watched their retreating figures, filled with regret and dejection, without a ripple of emotion in my heart. I took a portion of the bonus and anonymously donated it to the orphanage where I grew up, improving the children's living and learning conditions. That place is the true meaning of home to me. Now, I continue to shine in my special position, today helping the aerospace agency solve engine problems, tomorrow assisting the medical field in conquering difficult diseases. George is still my full-time nanny and boyfriend, whose daily routine involves coordinating work for me, shielding me from various troubles, and asking some inexplicable questions. Anna, am I handsome? Handsome? Which part of me do you like the most? Abs? What do you want to eat tonight? You, after hearing the first story above, what are your thoughts? Feel free to share your opinions in the comments section. Next, there is another similar story. Let's continue to see. I am indeed the legitimate daughter of the James family, reclaimed and restored to my rightful home after years away. Upon my return, I encountered Cindy, the girl who had been masquerading as a daughter of the family. Each time she saw me, she would burst into tears, her sobs echoing through the corridors of our house. Oh, I know I'm not the true child of mom and dad, and I have no right to compete with my sister," she would wail pitifully. "Mom and Dad, I'm aware that you both prefer my sister over me," she would continue, her voice breaking with each word. "No matter how my sister may treat me, I must bear it," she declared, her cries a constant backdrop to our daily lives. The grief of such a charade weighed heavily on me, and in my previous life, it led to my untimely demise. However, fate granted me another chance, reborn and back before the moment my sister Jenny recognized me. I was determined to set things right. When Cindy opened her mouth to start her usual lament, I couldn't hold back. I slapped her, my frustration boiling over. "All you do is cry, cry, cry. Do you want to tear this family apart with your tears?" I confronted her, my voice sharp with accusation. I am the true daughter of the James family. Had it not been for Jenny instantly recognizing me, noting my striking resemblance to our mother in her youth, I might have continued living a life of anonymity and toil. Jenny had informed me about a younger sister in the family, my age, but she advised me to disregard the tiresome girl who did nothing but cry all day. At first, I didn't think much of it until I met Cindy with my own eyes and heard her repetitive, self-pitying script. Her words were always the same, a litany of her perceived injustices and a testament to her manipulative nature. This behavior continued until my parents, Mom and Dad, expressed their profound disappointment in me within a year of my arrival. "Sarah, why are you behaving this way, treating your sister so harshly? Outsiders might think you've lost your mind," they reprimanded me. Angered and misunderstood, I secluded myself in my room, forsaking food and drink, ultimately dying from my grievances, unnoticed and unacknowledged. When I awoke in this new life, I realized I had been given a second chance before the moment Jenny found me. Looking at my still frail and feeble body, a smile of determination spread across my face. This time, rather than being wrongly accused and labeled as insane by the manipulative Cindy, I decided to embrace a touch of madness in my defense. "Cindy, you better be prepared. In my previous life, it was merely by chance that Jenny found me standing at that fateful intersection. This time, I will not leave my fate to chance." While waiting for the traffic light, I had meticulously planned my appearance to evoke sympathy. I had deliberately dressed in the worn-out, tight clothing that I used to wear during my junior high school days and stationed myself by the roadside to accentuate my destitute appearance. I had even rolled around in a trash bin beforehand and carried a plastic bag with me. In this carefully crafted state of despair, I was found by Jenny. At that moment, I was squatting beside the trash can, seemingly lost in my own world. As I picked up discarded bottles and muttered to myself incoherently, my resemblance to my mother in her youth was striking. Even though the results of the paternity test were still pending, everyone around seemed to implicitly accept that I was the long-lost youngest daughter of the prestigious James family. When she saw me, my mother gently stroked my unkempt hair, overcome with emotion, and burst into tears, collapsing into my father's arms. My father, upon seeing the vacant look in my eyes and the scars marking my body, turned away to discreetly wipe his tears. My elder sister Jenny, her eyes brimming with tears, approached me cautiously, fearful of frightening me, clearly unsure of how to interact, to further convince them of my feigned mental instability. During the comprehensive medical examination, I oscillated between bursts of terrifying screams and bouts of miserable laughter. Eventually, my act led to the diagnosis I had anticipated. The James family was informed that I was mentally unwell, a diagnosis that seemed to confirm their darkest fears. Reflecting on the accusations of insanity I faced in my previous life, I now wondered what they felt, seeing me in this genuine state of declared madness. Returning to the James family's fold under such different circumstances compared to my last time felt surreal. I had endured 18 years of hardship to reclaim my place in what I considered my true home. Today marked the commencement of what I envisioned as a new, wonderful chapter of my life. Unfortunately, it also heralded the start of a nightmare for Cindy. She had been anxiously awaiting my return at home. Upon seeing me, she immediately burst into tears. As she opened her mouth, likely to voice some grievance or sorrow, I sharply interrupted her with a slap across her face. "Why are you crying? Is crying all you know? Do you want to tear this family apart with your tears?" I stood defiantly, hands on hips, glaring down at her with a challenging pose reminiscent of a battle-ready rooster. Cindy, stunned by my aggressive gesture, briefly showed a flicker of joy, perhaps seeing it as a chance to garner sympathy. She then turned to run towards our mother, her expression one of aggrieved innocence, as if seeking refuge. "Mom, my sister," Cindy harbored deep resentment towards me. accusing me of usurping her identity, of taking something profoundly personal from her. Before she could elaborate further, I found myself murmuring softly and diverting my gaze, as if haunted by invisible specters. A chill ran through me, and my eyes fell to my feet, shod in tattered slippers. My mother noticed my discomfort and followed my gaze, the stark contrast between my worn footwear and Cindy's luxurious latest model Louis Vuitton summer shoes, which no doubt cost a small fortune, visibly saddened her. Holding Cindy in her arms, she couldn't hide her dismay, her eyes welled with tears. In a moment of upset, she pushed Cindy aside gently and stepped toward me, but as she reached out, she suddenly pulled back, covering her face with her hands as she broke down sobbing. Cindy looked on in utter bewilderment at the unfolding drama. Jenny, my protective older sister, swiftly came to my defense. Positioning herself between Cindy and me, she sternly told Cindy to be quiet. Cindy, feeling slighted, began to cry again, her eyes rolling in frustration. Out of the corner of my eye, I saw Cindy open her mouth to speak, but I cut her off, raising my voice to avert further conflict. Our father, who had been quietly observing the tense scene, finally intervened. Enough, Cindy. Stop crying and don't agitate your sister further. Go to your room, he instructed firmly. And despite her feelings of injustice, Cindy was compelled to retreat to her room. The house was large, with many rooms, but the most spacious bedroom on the third floor was designated as mine. My mother explained that it had always been intended for me. After I had gone missing, she clung to the hope of my return, keeping my room ready and waiting. With cautious tenderness, she asked me, "Daughter, what is your name now?" Her voice trembled with emotion, and she cast nervous glances at my father and Jenny. I responded with a gentle smile, "Auntie, I'm Sarah now." Hearing this, tears streamed down my mother's cheeks again. "Sarah, I'm your mother, your mom," she sobbed, concerned she might collapse from her overwhelming emotions. My father quickly suggested they go out to buy my daily necessities, a task she insisted on handling personally, distrusting the servants with such personal duties. Initially, when I first returned, everyone had treated me with kindness, but over time, influenced by Cindy's persistent manipulations, their treatment had soured, leading to a tragic chapter in my life where Cindy was the main antagonist. But this time around, I was determined. I would reclaim everything that was rightfully mine. Upon observing the scene, Jenny quickly approached and gently patted my shoulder, offering words of reassurance. "Sarah, as your big sister, I'll make sure she doesn't take what rightfully belongs to you." It seemed Jenny thought I might not grasp her intention and muttered this more to herself than to me. However, I understood perfectly well that she was referring to Cindy. Smiling inwardly, I thought, "Big sister, I will protect you too." In my previous life, Cindy had cunningly set me up, which resulted in our parents losing trust in me. My elder sister had fiercely defended me, but unfortunately, her involvement led to her being reprimanded by our parents. She even faced a temporary suspension from her role in the family business. But now, with my return, I was determined to prevent any of that from happening again. After the incident, Jenny led me to take a bath. I borrowed some of her clothes to wear temporarily and then waited in the living room for our parents to return. The household staff, aware of the joyous occasion of the James family finding their lost daughter, greeted me with warm smiles. However, adhering to Mom's earlier instructions to not exacerbate my supposed condition, they were cautious in their interactions with me. Only after getting a nod from Jenny did they bring me an array of fruits and snacks. Soon after, our parents arrived, laden with shopping bags filled with high-end clothes and accessories. I was delighted by their gifts, though I was currently labeled as a patient with madness. While trying out the clothes, I fidgeted nervously and shuffled uncomfortably on the carpet, feeling as if I were standing on blades, my feet awkwardly overlapping. Observing my discomfort, Mom quickly instructed a servant, "Quickly put on shoes for the young lady." However, she paused, perhaps concerned that the servant might unintentionally disturb me, and decided to help me with the shoes herself. This moment was unfortunately witnessed by Cindy, who had just descended the stairs. I could see a flash of jealousy cross her face as her eyes scanned the array of new clothes and bags before her. She wasted no time in beginning her act of concern. "Sister, sister. How could you let Mom do that? Her knees aren't in the best condition." Cindy cast a resentful glance at me, then shifted her gaze to Mom's knees with exaggerated concern. "If you really can't manage to put on your shoes without assistance, sister, let me help," she offered, her eyes welling up with tears, ready to play the part of the doting daughter. But before I could respond, Jenny intervened sharply. Cindy, Mom is too happy today to worry about, having recently reunited with our family. I discovered that my sister Cindy was unaware of our mother's deteriorating knee condition. It's a simple matter of her struggling to put on her shoes, something Cindy seemed oblivious to. Cindy appeared to be under the impression that since I had just been found, our parents were giving me extra attention, mistakenly thinking they loved her less, despite our parents assuring her that her place in the James family remained unchanged. Cindy felt slighted and, fighting back tears, she retorted incredulously, Sister, she's already 18 years old. How could she not even know how to put on shoes? In that moment, as our mom just finished assisting me by slipping on one of my shoes, I, overwhelmed by Cindy's harsh words, impulsively threw the other shoe at her, shouting, Don't you talk about my sister, you ugly thing. My actions were irrational. Spurred again by Cindy's provocation, Cindy's face, twisted into a mix of triumph and tears, failed to sway Jenny, who saw through her facade and continued to comfort me. Amidst this, she excitedly told our mom, Did you hear that? Sarah called me elder sister. This intervention shifted our parents' focus entirely away from Cindy's emotional display to envelop me with their love and attention. Dad, I'm your dad. This is your mom. Call us Mom and Dad, my father urged, his voice thick with emotion. He and Mom expressed regret for not having taken adequate care of me, which had led to my long absence. They promised to make up for the lost time with double the affection. As Dad spoke these heartwarming words, Mom gently chastised him. Stop talking about these things. She looked at me, her eyes brimming with hope, which slowly turned into mild disappointment when I responded only with a sweet, naive smile. Without calling them Mom and Dad, Mom tried to hide her sadness with a bittersweet smile, reassuring Dad and herself, It's okay, there's no rush, we still have a long time ahead, Cindy. Feeling neglected and surprised by the lack of attention, weakly called out, Dad. He looked at her, visibly exhausted, and reminded her, Cindy, didn't I tell you to go back to your room first? Your sister's mental state is not good, and you can't stimulate her. As soon as he finished speaking, it was clear that cooperation was needed to maintain a peaceful environment and to support my mental recovery, emphasizing the delicate balance our family needed to restore. I began by suddenly shouting at the top of my lungs, I. In the next moment, I frantically grabbed at my arm, scratching wildly as if plagued by an unbearable itch. The sight was so alarming that Cindy, visibly terrified, made a swift retreat upstairs. She remained hidden away until it was time for dinner. When she finally came down, her eyes flitted nervously around the room. She looked at me with a mix of fear and sympathy, murmuring softly, Sister, please sit next to Mom. I don't mind at all. I can just eat in the corner. With those words, Cindy quietly positioned herself at a solitary corner of the dining table, while the rest of us engaged in lively conversation, creating a warm atmosphere. Cindy sat isolated, her demeanor forlorn and dejected. It was as though we were a close-knit family and she was merely an outsider looking in. Her strategy to appear as the victim seemed to be working effectively, indeed. I could see a flicker of pity cross Mom's face as she noticed Cindy's plight. She even opened her mouth as if to invite Cindy back to join us at the main table. However, I wasn't about to let Cindy have her way so easily. Auntie, may I sit at the table to have dinner? I asked innocently, tilting my head slightly and pursing my lips while giving her a cautious look. At that moment, I had cleaned myself up and appeared completely sane. The use of auntie struck a chord with Mom, penetrating her defenses. Yes, of course, you can. Sarah, would you like to sit next to Mom? She responded warmly. I gratefully took Mom's hand, squinted my eyes, and smiled with feigned obedience and sensibility. Out of the corner of my eye, I noticed Cindy glaring at me with venom. Internally, I reveled in her annoyance. Feeling quite pleased with myself, I proceeded to enjoy a hearty meal, consuming 2 large bowls of food. Meat, I exclaimed gleefully between bites, clapping my hands, which visibly irritated Cindy even further. She managed a forced smile in return, though it was clear she harbored doubts about my mental state. Later that night, Cindy's facade completely fell away when she crept into my room. As I opened my eyes, I found her standing by my bedside, her expression twisted with venom, no longer hiding her true feelings. Sarah, who do you think you are? How dare you compete with me for Mom and Dad's love? She hissed. This is my home. Sooner or later, you'll have to leave. Her words hinted at a breakdown, likely fueled by the frustration and anger accumulated throughout the day. This confrontation was new. It hadn't occurred in my past life. Perhaps Cindy was now feeling threatened, with a chuckle. I responded, "Is that so? Do you really think you can make me leave?" Her eyes widened in shock as she realized I had been feigning my earlier behavior. "So you were pretending all along," she accused. "I'm going to tell Mom," I replied calmly, watching her reaction closely. As the tension in the room escalated, Sarah's actions became more drastic. In a quick succession, she smashed 4 cups on the bedside table, each shattering louder than the last. This sudden display of aggression caused Cindy to retreat in fear, wary of the sharp glass shards that could potentially harm her. Just as the last cup broke, Jenny, who had been sleeping in the adjacent room, was jolted awake by the commotion. She rushed into Sarah's room, alarmed and concerned. Meanwhile, Sarah, now standing on her bed, waved her arms wildly, her demeanor suggesting she was in the grips of a breakdown. In the corner, Cindy huddled, visibly shaken and shivering with fear. "Sarah. What's wrong with Sarah?" Jenny called out, trying to understand the situation. Before Jenny could delve further into Sarah's condition, their parents also arrived, drawn by the noise. Knowing Cindy's tendency to skew the truth, Jenny was on high alert, anticipating Cindy's version of events. Amidst the chaos, as Cindy began to explain, her words were cut short when she noticed their mother's shocked expression. At that moment, Sarah rolled her eyes back and collapsed beside the bed, dangerously close to the broken glass. Her parents, frantic with worry, rushed to her side to prevent her from getting injured. "Cindy, are you out of your mind?" Jenny exclaimed, her voice harsh and accusing. "Sarah is clearly not well. How could you provoke her like this in the middle of the night? What were you thinking? Do you want to harm her?" As their father gently lifted Sarah, he was overwhelmed by her frailty. She weighed barely over 30 kilograms. The realization brought tears to his eyes, even as Sarah feigned unconsciousness, a tactic to deflect blame. Cindy, in a state of panic, tried to defend herself. "I didn't mean it. It's really her, not me." But her plea fell on deaf ears. "Stop talking, Cindy. Mom is really disappointed in you," Jenny interjected sternly. Cindy gasped sharply upon hearing those words. Likely the first time she had ever heard such disappointment voiced so openly by their mother. This role reversal was stark. Previously, it had been Sarah who was not believed. As they headed to the hospital, Sarah, exhausted from her day-long act, couldn't resist the pull of sleep any longer. Despite her feigned madness, the day's events had drained her, and she drifted off to sleep in the car. The doctor, upon examining Sarah at the hospital, would soon unveil the extent of her emotional and physical state. I was administered an intravenous drip as both my mom and dad were informed that my overwhelming fatigue had precipitated a decline in my mental health. The doctors advised that I needed extensive rest and should avoid any form of overstimulation. "My poor daughter," Mom sobbed inconsolably. Despite efforts by Jenny and Dad to comfort her, she was steadfast in her resolve to remain by my side, clutching my hand throughout the night. By the following morning, the hospital had scheduled my discharge. After a restful sleep, I found joy playing in the living room. Under the watchful eyes of Cindy, I was amusingly overloaded with 3 or 4 bags slung over my shoulders, my clothes jumbled together in a haphazard fashion. Yet, the happiness I felt was palpable and authentic, especially because the bags were filled with items from renowned brands, which added to my delight. In stark contrast to my mood, Cindy appeared downstairs with dark circles under her eyes and an evident fatigue, clearly having had a restless night. "Cindy, you nearly drove Mom to madness yesterday. Please, no more troubles. Sarah is already in a fragile state," I heard Jenny reprimand her. "The doctors have diagnosed her with a mental illness. What makes you think you can challenge their expertise and accuse her of pretending?" Jenny continued, her voice tinged with residual frustration from the previous day's near miss with the broken glass. Dad had left for work early, leaving Mom to tend to me. She still seemed perturbed as she listened to this exchange. "Jenny, remember you are the older sister. Cindy and Sarah are both your younger siblings, and Cindy does care about Sarah. Let's not dwell on yesterday's events anymore," Mom interjected, her voice reflecting her usual indecisiveness. She had always been lenient towards Cindy, perhaps because she raised her, and was reluctant to be overly strict, inadvertently enabling her missteps. "Thank you, Mom, for your forgiveness." "I'm sorry," Cindy exclaimed with relief, tears streaming down her face as she embraced Mom. This reconciliation, however, filled me with unease. I casually picked up a half-eaten piece of chocolate from the table and approached Cindy, offering it to her with a smile. "Eat this." Cindy glanced at the chocolate, her expression one of disgust. Particularly because it was tainted with my saliva, given that Cindy was adopted into a life of privilege. Her distaste for leftovers was expected, and she refused it politely. "I don't need it, sister, we have plenty at home," she said, gently pushing the chocolate away. Feeling somewhat dejected, I clutched the chocolate and retreated to a corner of the room, where I crouched down, appearing quite pitiful. Jenny watched silently, her expression unreadable as the dynamics within our family continued to unfold subtly but significantly. Cindy, what's that look on your face? If you really don't fancy eating the chocolate, that's perfectly okay, but why the grimace of disgust? Remember, I asked you not to provoke Sarah. This might be the first time she's experiencing such exquisite chocolate. She's excited to share this moment with you, hoping to foster a genuine sisterly bond, despite her mental health challenges. Sarah is sensitive and her feelings can be easily wounded. Caught off guard by the confrontation, I stood there momentarily dumbstruck and deeply hurt. "Thank you, Jenny, for being such a supportive sister." Upon hearing Jenny's admonishment, Mom released Cindy's hand and walked over to gently guide me back to the comfort of the sofa. Without a hint of displeasure, Mom graciously accepted and savored all the chocolate I offered her. "Sarah, you're such a sweetheart. Thank you for this lovely chocolate," she said warmly. Blushing slightly, I nodded shyly, tilting my head and snuggling close to Mom's shoulder. Inside, though, tears threatened to spill. In my prior life, Cindy had consistently tried to create a rift between me and our parents from the moment I stepped into the household. Though Mom held love and guilt towards me, we had never been as close as we were at this moment. Without Cindy's divisive tactics, perhaps our relationship could have flourished naturally. She had always desired to monopolize our parents' affection, pushing me aside. This time around, I was determined not to let her succeed. As expected, Cindy resumed her manipulative behavior, her tears flowing freely as she began to sob dramatically. "I'm sorry, sister, I didn't mean to. I realize now that Mom, Dad, and you all care for me, yet everything I do seems wrong, no matter how you treat me. Woohoo." Before she could continue, I couldn't hold back and slapped her once more. Then started pacing frantically. "Cindy, enough," Jenny shouted, visibly frustrated by the spectacle. "Sarah, be careful not to trip," Mom called out, her attention now solely focused on me, disregarding Cindy's dramatic display. But just as she spoke, I stumbled and fell hard to the floor, the impact sending a sharp pain through me. Mom rushed to cradle me in her arms. Concern etched across her face as I lay dizzy and disoriented. Jenny seized the moment to continue her lecture. "Cindy, Mom has always said we're one family. Sarah's return doesn't change our love for you. Why must you keep provoking her?" Through these repeated incidents, Mom's expression gradually darkened as she began to realize that there was a deeper issue at play. Recalling similar manipulative tactics from Cindy in the past, my mother had always perceived Cindy as a sweet and understanding girl. However, over time, her perception shifted. Cindy now seemed mean and narrow-minded compared to me. During one of our conversations, Cindy, tears streaming down her face, played the victim, pleading, "Sister, why do you misunderstand me too? I'm just concerned about you." Unfortunately, she was oblivious to the change in our mother's demeanor. The sympathy in Mom's eyes had faded into annoyance. With a dismissive wave of her hand, Mom instructed Cindy to return to her room and study, emphasizing that growing up under the watchful eyes of both parents meant minor transgressions wouldn't warrant being sent away from home. It was summer vacation, and Cindy and I saw each other daily. I speculated that it was only a matter of time before Cindy would reveal her true intentions. Deep down, I knew she harbored intense resentment towards me. Since that day, Cindy maintained a low profile and ceased initiating conversations with me. It appeared she was strategically withdrawing to curry favor with our parents and solidify her standing within the family. However, the unpredictable nature of her emotional state made her actions unreliable. One day, my parents returned home, visibly elated, with a paternity test report and a revised household registration certificate that changed my last name back to James. My mother, in her joy, had bought me an array of beautiful clothes, and despite my unconventional dress sense, she remained delighted when I acknowledged them with a smile, calling them Dad, Mom. They were overwhelmed with emotion. Jenny, witnessing this, exclaimed in surprise, "Mom and Dad, did you hear that? Sarah just called you Mom and Dad." She must be starting to feel a connection. As we all shared this moment, Cindy descended the stairs with a sullen expression. However, upon seeing us, she adopted an innocent smile and called out, Mom and Dad, as she approached. This interruption caused me to discreetly withdraw my hand from my mother's grasp and regard Cindy with a blank expression. The atmosphere shifted slightly, reflecting a complex mix of emotions among us. The atmosphere was heavy with disappointment as it seemed that there was a subtle resentment building towards Cindy. Her siblings' displeasure was palpable in the air. Cindy, completely oblivious to the shift in mood, turned to me with a look of innocence. "Sister, what's wrong?" she asked. Her eyes wide with confusion, trying to defuse the tension. I put on a foolish smile and said, "I just want to play with Cindy." Jenny, who was listening, frowned slightly. It was clear she was not thrilled about me spending time with Cindy, whom she seemed to regard as somewhat manipulative. Ignoring her displeasure, I impulsively grabbed Cindy's arm and clung to her, making it difficult for her to pull away. "Cindy, Cindy," I repeated, holding on tightly. Cindy's anxiety grew, and she was on the verge of tears, but despite their efforts, neither Mom nor Dad could detach me from her. Seeing an opportunity, our parents intervened. "Cindy, you're on vacation anyway, why don't you spend some time playing with your sister?" they suggested, trying to encourage a better bond between us. "She's lighthearted and just wants to enjoy your company. It's simple, really." Jenny's mood seemed to improve upon seeing Cindy's predicament. With a hint of satisfaction, she said, "I think that's a great idea, Mom and Dad. I'm off to work now." "Okay, go ahead," they responded casually, and soon both Jenny and Dad exited, leaving us in the quiet of the house. Mom, who had been home more frequently these days, faced constant invitations from her friends to go out, but she chose to stay. As another call from her friends came in, she spoke to Cindy. "Why don't you stay home and play with your sister to strengthen your bond? I'll be back in the evening. Is that okay? You know your sister's situation, please take good care of her." Cindy, with a forced smile more pain than any tear, felt cornered into agreement. As soon as Mom left, the facade dropped. Cindy glared at me. "Sarah, get off me," she hissed. I couldn't help but laugh, taking a moment to remind her with a hint of mockery. "Cindy, remember, Mom and Dad have officially changed my last name. I am Sarah James now." Stressing the last words for emphasis, Cindy was visibly shaken, her anger manifesting in her clenched jaw, yet she was powerless. Aware that the household staff wouldn't betray her to our parents, she knew she still had to tread carefully to avoid any consequences if she were perceived as harming me. With a strained smile, she conceded, okay, dear sister, let's go to my room and read some books. I'll help you with some extra reading." Eagerly, I clapped my hands, showing my anticipation for what I could learn next. Forced to adopt the unsettling guise of a mentally unstable individual, my charade required even deeper immersion into the role than before. Cindy, with an air of authority, glanced at the house staff and issued a command, "Bring 2 glasses of milk to my room later. They will help improve my sister's health. She's far too slender," she instructed confidently. The servants quickly acknowledged with a, "Yes, Miss," and went on their way. Only when her orders were carried out did Cindy appear satisfied, leading me upstairs with a feigned affection that left a bitter taste in my mouth. She persisted in referring to me as her sister, a term so falsely sweet it was revolting. Predictably, as soon as the door to her room clicked shut, Cindy's demeanor shifted dramatically. "You unhinged fool, just stay put, don't wander or touch anything," she snapped, her face twisting with contempt as she looked down at me. Her room, a stark contrast to her words, was a sanctuary of opulence, adorned with exquisite and costly dolls, each likely worth thousands of yuan. In a past life, these dolls were her treasures, and she had once falsely accused me of attempting to steal them. This time, I thought with a smirk, "I'll shatter them just for you." Nodding submissively, I signaled that I would comply with her demands. Satisfied, Cindy turned away to her desk, her back to me as she began to immerse herself in a book. Once she was comfortably settled and lost in her reading, I seized the moment. With a mischievous grin, I began to frantically destroy the dolls, my hands moving quickly. The ceramic artworks, they shattered under my touch as well. The commotion eventually reached Cindy's ears, and by the time she spun around, I had laid waste to most of her prized possessions. She let out a horrified scream and lunged at me in rage. "You maniac! Stop it right now," she shrieked, mocking her. I parroted, "You maniac! Stop it right now," mimicking her earlier disdain. In a flash of fury, Cindy's hands were at my throat, her eyes blazing with hatred. I made no move to defend myself, allowing her to tighten her grip, but her anger quickly turned to manipulation as she grabbed my hands and placed them around her own neck. "Oh no," "Sister, please don't do this," she whimpered theatrically. It was clear Cindy was attempting to stage a scene for the servants, planning to tell our parents that I, the unstable one, had not only destroyed her belongings but had also tried to strangle her, a clever tactic, indeed, using my actions against me, but I was not about to let her plan succeed. Just as I was about to release her, the distinct sound of a car horn echoed from downstairs. With a chuckle, I pushed her towards the window, ensuring we were in full view. "Oh no, sis," she cried out. Playing the victim to perfection, in this twisted moment, Cindy couldn't have been more pleased with herself. No matter who arrived and witnessed the scene, they would undoubtedly question my mental state and consider confining me, falling right into Cindy's meticulously laid trap. At least there would always be someone keeping an eye on me around the clock. In such a situation, how could I possibly devise a strategy to confront Cindy, just when Cindy believed that I, supposedly unhinged, had fallen prey to her scheme? She was taken by surprise as I swiftly grabbed her, reversing our roles in the blink of an eye. I found myself being shoved towards the window, and Cindy's eyes widened in utter shock. "You," I responded with a manic grin, followed by a scream filled with feigned terror. "Don't kill me, don't kill me." Despite the chaos, Cindy attempted to persist with her act of innocence and distress. Silently, I seized her hand and leaned back dramatically, crafting a deceptive scene where it appeared as if she had shoved me down the staircase. This ploy was one she had once taught me in a past life. Cindy had manipulated our parents into believing I was a threat to her, tainting their perception of me and garnering their disappointment. Now, it was her turn to taste the bitter flavor of unjust accusations. As fate would have it, my mother, fraught with concern, arrived just in time to witness what seemed like Cindy pushing me down the stairs. "Sarah," she cried out, urging those around her, "quick, save her, save her." As soon as she stepped out of the car, she was met with the sight of me seemingly tumbling from the upper floor. Her legs gave way under the shock, and she collapsed to the ground, weeping. Luckily, my fall ended in the swimming pool below, but given it was from the third floor, I was submerged quite deep. Thankfully, the driver and the doorman, both adept swimmers, coordinated swiftly to rescue me. Had I not been certain of their swimming abilities, would never have dared to take such a perilous risk. The driver expertly administered CPR, pulling me back from the brink of death, a sensation I found profoundly unpleasant. However, witnessing my mother push Cindy aside in her rush to get to me reassured me that my actions had been worthwhile. I was on the verge of achieving my goal. "Sarah, my poor daughter, call an ambulance quickly, have the butler inform Mr. and Mrs. to return immediately," my mother instructed, her voice steady despite her own distress, a testament to her upbringing in a prominent family where composure was key. Soon, I was swathed in a thick bath towel for warmth, for safety, and perhaps out of a newfound distrust. My mother allowed no one but herself to come near me. I lay in her arms, feigning weakness, my hands clutching her sleeve as I sobbed softly. Meanwhile, the unresolved tension with Cindy hung in the air, her fate with our family now uncertain. "For 18 years, you were raised as our own daughter, yet in the end, you still attempted to harm my own flesh and blood, my biological daughter. It seems to me that you are the one who's lost touch with reality." With a frosty glance, my mother dismissed her and continued past, cradling me in her arms. The harsh words she uttered were not new to me, they echoed painfully, reminiscent of accusations from my past life. I subtly tilted my head, using a bath towel to dab away the tears forming in the corners of my eyes. My mother, mistaking my movements for fear, caressed my head soothingly. "Sarah, don't worry, I'm here now, we'll be at the hospital soon and everything will be alright, the pain will soon pass." Cindy, in a state of panic, burst into genuine tears. Mom, I swear I didn't push her." However, her tears didn't seem to stem from regret. Perhaps she hadn't anticipated that in my distraught state I would accidentally stumble towards the window. Did she? Being falsely accused leaves a bitter taste. By the time Dad and Jenny arrived at the hospital, I was already settled in a hospital bed. "Sarah," they called out, concern etched in their voices. I glanced down at my hand, connected to an 4 drip, and a wry smile crossed my pale face. After undergoing a series of tests, hunger gnawed at me. "Dad, Mom, now that you've located Cindy's biological parents, please consider sending her back to them," I suggested weakly. "I understand it's hard to let go after 18 years, but she inadvertently tried to replace my biological sister, and today, she almost pushed me down the stairs in your absence. It's miraculous that a swimming pool broke my fall and you returned just in time. Otherwise, Sarah might not have been so fortunate. Cindy has her own family, even though they may not be wealthy, they are her rightful parents, and she needs to honor her obligations to them. I continued earnestly. The old saying goes, a wolf in sheep's clothing can never be tamed, no matter how well it's raised. Hearing Jenny's heartfelt plea made our parents hesitate, revealing a facet of the story unknown to me in my past life. It appeared that by this point, they were already aware of Cindy's true lineage. My only concern now was how to ensure Cindy would return to her biological family. Sister, you truly are my guardian angel, I thought to myself, feeling a surge of gratitude and relief so intense that tears streamed down my cheeks. In my heart, I nearly burst into cheers for her astuteness in handling the situation. Go up and hug Jenny right away. Mom, who had been showing signs of reluctance, gave a solemn nod and reassured, Sarah, please don't cry. From now on, it's just going to be you and your sister in the house. It was as if the years had suddenly caught up with Mom. Her face wore a somber look as she turned to Dad with a melancholic gaze. It's time, we need to send her away. Dad silently agreed, overwhelmed with emotion and eager to leave. I could hardly contain my excitement about being discharged from the hospital. Despite having been there for less than 2 days, I insisted on going home, thankfully. The doctors confirmed that my symptoms were mostly due to fright and a mild cold, and overall, I was in good health. This news brought great relief to my parents, who were anxious to take me back home. Upon our arrival, we were met with the sight of Cindy descending the stairs, her arms grappling with a suitcase. The moment she laid eyes on us, tears began to cascade down her cheeks. Through her sobs, she cried out, Dad, Mom, I know you don't believe me and are extremely disappointed. I'll leave on my own, I won't make you hate me. Her voice was laden with a sense of injustice and sorrow. Fearing that Mom might still hesitate to let Cindy go, I instinctively clung to her arm. However, Mom misinterpreted this as fear of Cindy and reached out to comfort me by holding my shoulder. I decided to play along and exaggerated my fear by shrinking back. Mom responded with a calm yet firm nod. After all, we've been through, you're still my daughter. The driver will take you to your parents' house later. I've already spoken to them, and they are expecting you. Cindy's expression turned to one of shock and disbelief. She looked up abruptly and exclaimed, Mom, what are you talking about? Are you really sending me away? In that moment, I couldn't help but stifle a giggle, burying my face in Mom's neck. Jenny, with a sneer, revealed the truth. It was my sister who was lost years ago. That's when Mom and Dad went to the orphanage and adopted you. They've always treated you as their own and kept your origins a secret. They had found your biological parents years ago and planned for you to meet them once you were settled in life. To acknowledge and repay your birth parents for their kindness, Mom and Dad had thought everything through for you. Accusations flew as she continued. You actually tried to kill Sarah. Cindy, her face a mask of panic and denial, shook her head frantically. No, I didn't try to push her. She came to my room by herself. Then things just spiraled out of control. In the disheveled state of my room, amidst the chaos, Cindy's aggression had escalated to the point where she had violently grabbed my neck. However, in a dramatic turn of events, she decided to leap away on her own accord. As she defended her actions with increasing conviction, she accused me bitterly. Yes, that's right, she jumped down by herself. You set me up, didn't you? Her eyes burned with animosity as she glared at me, her expression filled with venom. At that moment, the profound disappointment was palpable on the faces of my parents, who had nurtured Cindy for 18 long years, only to witness this scene unfold. My father intervened protectively, stepping in front of me to create a barrier between Cindy and myself. With a heavy heart, he demanded, send her away, I can't bear to look at her anymore. Complying with his wishes, the household staff hastily gathered Cindy's belongings to escort her out, despite her protests of, I won't leave, this is my home. Clutching my mother's arm, I pleaded silently, ensuring she remained resolute. Lifting my eyes to meet hers, I saw the tears glistening in her eyes as she embraced me. Sarah, I'm so sorry, this is all my fault, she whispered, her voice cracking with emotion. Don't worry, nothing else will happen. I'll protect you. Cindy has shown her true colors. Despite everything you've endured, she still intended to harm you. I reassured her with a hug. It's okay, Mom, It's all over now, everything is over. With Cindy's departure, a palpable sense of relief swept through the James family household, cleansing the air of the previous tension. Reflecting on the past, I realized how vulnerable I had been in my previous life, having been fatally harmed by Cindy. Time moved on, and with each passing day, my mental state stabilized significantly. Supported immensely by the love and care from my family, my mother frequently reminded my sister Jenny, "Take Sarah out more often when you have the time, and make sure she's safe." Their belief was that their love and support had been pivotal in my recovery. Jenny, ever the protective sibling, assured, "Don't worry, Mom, I'll take care of Sarah for the rest of her life. I won't let anyone hurt her ever again," demonstrating her affection. I peeled a grape for Jenny and handed it to her with a smile, thinking to myself how she was truly the best sister anyone could ask for. Looking ahead, my parents even began discussing the possibility of me taking a more active role in managing the family business, acknowledging the resilience and maturity I had developed from my challenging experiences growing up. Attending school effectively has been beyond my grasp, even with the opportunity for a fresh start. After spending so much time feigning insanity and foolishness, I haven't managed to read a single book. Under these conditions, it seems unfeasible for me to take the reins of the company. The relentless conflict with Cindy has exhausted nearly all the intellectual resources I've accumulated across 2 lifetimes. The corporate realm is akin to a war zone where one can easily be obliterated without a trace. I truly feel overwhelmed by it. I've meticulously prepared to depend on my parents for now, and plan to lean on my sister as I grow older. My only sorrow lies in not knowing how to gently convey to my sister Jenny that I am not actually insane. She has steadfastly believed in me through both lifetimes, and the last thing I want is to betray her trust. As I grappled with this dilemma, it was Jenny who broke the silence before I could. She invited me to a lavish restaurant for a meal one day. While I sat there, pondering whether to eat the steak before me with my hands or with chopsticks, she began to slice her steak with a knowing smile. "Come on, there's no need for pretenses here. It's just us. Mom and Dad aren't around, nor any strangers," she said. "Sarah, you're so skilled at this, you even kept me in the dark. If I hadn't realized that you were feigning madness, your act would have been uncovered during your second hospital visit," Jenny commented with a touch of pride as she enjoyed her meal. "Is that so?" I frowned, slightly taken aback. I thought my acting was convincing, given the pressure Cindy had put me through before. It seemed almost natural that I would snap. "I did graduate from Stanford, you little rascal," she teased. "And once we get rid of that scheming witch Cindy, we're set for brighter days ahead," Jenny added, her smile brimming with optimism. Her assurance lifted my spirits considerably. Jenny had everything planned out. All I needed to do was visit the hospital a couple more times and have the doctor confirm to our parents that my condition had stabilized. After that, they would arrange for me to resume my studies, relieving me from the need to maintain my facade of madness. "Sister, you truly are my real sister. I'll depend on you from now on," I expressed with heartfelt gratitude, arm in arm. We left the restaurant to enjoy a shopping spree at the mall. Little did we expect that Cindy would suddenly appear, rushing towards us. From some hidden corner, Sarah's voice rang out, tinged with blame. "It's all your fault that I'm like this." She was visibly battered, her injury severe and her forehead swollen and reddish, clear signs of the physical abuse she had suffered at the hands of her biological parents upon her return. My sister reacted swiftly, pushing her away with a kick. "Damn it, where did this monster come from?" The commotion quickly drew the attention of mall security. After reviewing the surveillance footage, they politely escorted Cindy out of the premises. I was at a loss for words regarding Cindy. I sincerely hoped that our paths would never cross again in this lifetime. After completing our shopping, Jenny drove me home, unbeknownst to us. Cindy was waiting along the only route we could take to get home, confronted by her presence. I couldn't hold back any longer and exclaimed, "Cindy, are you crazy?" Taken aback at first, Cindy then burst into laughter. "Sarah, you're really good at pretending. Even Mom and Dad have been fooled by you," I retorted bitterly. "What else should I do? Wait for you to drive a wedge between Mom and Dad, make them completely disappointed in me, and let me die alone in my room, consumed by grief? Should I just stand by and watch you enjoy the love of our parents while I remain the little girl who suffered for 18 years? Cindy, you were the one who stole my home. If you had been honest and well-behaved, how could you have ended up like this? Those who commit many injustices will surely meet their own downfall. You'd better take good care of yourself." Exasperated, I told my sister, "Drive," and irately rolled up the car window. Jenny looked at me, shocked by the intensity of the confrontation, but she soon recovered. "You're truly my sister," she said, though she was unaware that the accusations I had hurled at Cindy were not just theoretical but were based on actual events from my previous life. Upon arriving home, Jenny relayed the entire incident at the mall to our parents. "She has nothing to do with our family anymore. Your mother and I have thought it through. We fulfilled our moral obligations by raising her for 18 years. From now on, Jenny, you only have Sarah as your sister, and the James family will officially recognize only two young ladies," Dad declared unequivocally. 2 months later, it was my birthday. Mom organized a lavish celebration and invited her friends and business associates. The party was bustling with many guests around my age, reflecting Mom's hopes for me to forge new friendships. In my previous life, Cindy's presence had overshadowed such events, preventing me from ever enjoying a grand birthday celebration, but this time, my sister's smile was brighter than ever, a reflection of our regained joy and the corrected paths in our lives. "Come on, today you're the star of the show, Sarah." It was common knowledge that today marked the birthday of the James family's youngest daughter, yet, the gathered crowd was in for a surprise as I, an unfamiliar face to many, stood in the spotlight. Today was not only my birthday but also the day my parents had chosen to formally introduce me to their friends and family. Confusion rippled through the room. "What's going on here? Wasn't Cindy the youngest daughter of the James family?" "Oh, you're behind the times. Cindy was the adopted daughter. Sarah here is their biological daughter. And what of the adopted one? Rumors are she attempted something terrible against Sarah to usurp her place, though who knows the truth in these tangled tales?" Beside me, Jenny squeezed my hand, a silent message of support, but there was no need for nerves. This was my home, surrounded by my loving family. My parents approached and guided me to the center of the room. "Thank you all for joining us to celebrate my daughter's birthday," my father began, his voice filled with emotion. "Today, we also want to share another significant announcement." As he concluded, both he and my mother turned towards me with warmth in their eyes, and my sister joined us, completing the family circle. I returned their smiles with a growing sense of belonging. "We are overjoyed to announce that after 18 long years, we have found our daughter who was lost to us. Her name is Sarah." After hearing the two stories above, what are your thoughts? Feel free to share your opinions in the comments section. Looking forward to hearing from you. If you liked this story, don't forget to like it, share it, and subscribe to my channel. See you next time.